Hi, I'm Dr. Robin Koslowitz, clinical psychologist, parenting educator, and post-traumatic parent. Welcome to the Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast, where we learn to provide our children with a healthy childhood, even if ours was anything but. Or maybe we had a wonderful childhood, but recent events in our lives have left us reeling. Let's face it, after 2020, we're all post-traumatic parents now. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Season 3 of the Post-Traumatic Parenting Podcast. I am so excited to have an author on that so many of you know about. I've spoken about her book a lot. You have all spoken about how much her book resonates. We are lucky enough to have Stephanie Fu, who is the author of What My Bones Know, probably the first person to really bring complex PTSD to popular consciousness so that people understand what it means when we grow up and we don't have, I guess, what psychology would call a normative childhood, and sort of really understanding what happens when our attachment figures aren't attachment figures and how that has an impact on us. And I think for the post-traumatic parenting community, how we feel when we then decide to make that very courageous decision to have children ourselves. So I'm so excited to have Stephanie on the podcast. I know she's working on a new book about her experiences parenting with CPTSD, so I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about. So, Stephanie, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your book. I finished it recently and really loved it. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
So, really, I do feel like you're the first person who made complex PTSD sort of public to the world. Like only clinicians sort of knew about it. You know what I mean? It was a clinical term, not a popular term.
Yeah, I mean, The Body Keeps the Score was a bestseller way before mine was. But, it wasn't humanizing in the same way, I would say.
Right.
So I give myself credit for that.
Yeah, it didn't give it a face and a voice, right? It didn't give it this is what it felt like to be a fifth grader going through this experience. It was clinical. Right? Mm-hmm. It gave us information. I mean, I had that same experience where when I started graduate school, I really wanted to know about the impact of my PTSD on, I was pregnant then, just on my developing fetus. What are all these panic attacks going to do to this baby? And it was before The Body Keeps the Score. No one was studying trauma. There was no research. I went to the stacks at BOPES at NYU and there was no research.
Yeah.
Zilch. Crickets.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of inherent sexism in that, because there has been a lot of research in men with PTSD, because there is an assumption that PTSD is a wartime condition and that you have to be shot at and go through war in order to experience what we do. But I think it's the exact same mechanism when your life is threatened from a domestic partner or a parent. And so, and a lot of those instances are female. I mean,
yeah,
I think more people with complex PTSD or PTSD tend to be women.
Yeah.
And so I think it just speaks to the inherent sexism within the scientific community that there isn't more research done on this condition.
That there's an invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of the same thing, when you're studying parenting, it's sort of seen as this stepchild of psychology. It's parenting, but, because that's almost like women's work. Although nowadays, of course, thankfully, I think we're starting to be like, well, you don't need specific plumbing to parent, right?
Yeah.
But you do need to be a pretty good attachment figure to parent, right? And it's your psyche, not your plumbing, that makes you a good attachment figure.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of what is available in terms of parenting literature is so overly prescriptive.
Yeah.
And so very specific. And you have to do it exactly the way that I am telling you to do it, or you're going to screw up your kid forever. And I think there's a lot of fear mongering and guilt that parenting experts and scientists tend to leverage against women specifically.
Yeah.
And I think that is very sexist as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think the burden has always been on the mother to be the best parent and the most, and you know, if anything bad happens to your child, or if they're screaming at a restaurant or whatever, it must be the mother's fault.
Yeah.
And so I think that really hasn't changed in like hundreds and hundreds of years.
It still
in
hasn't.
the literature.
It really
that
still
I've
hasn't.
seen.
Yeah. If you think about it, right, psychoanalysis and behaviorism, the one thing they both had in common was that they're mother blaming theories. Right? Like mom's frigid or withholding or overly intrusive, or mom is training your behavior wrong. Either way, the one thing they have in common, I find that really, I learned this from my professor, Sandy McClowery, who was Stella Chess's grad student. And the whole reason why Stella Chess started studying temperament in babies was because she said, wait a minute, like she was a grad student who was a mom. She's like, wait a minute. Why are we, no matter what we do, we blame mothers? Like, what happened to the interaction between what the baby's born with and the mother, right? Mom's personality plus baby's temperament interact in different ways. And that's what attracted me to studying temperament theory, was this idea of like, I was also a pregnant graduate student in a class full of no one else was pregnant at the time, right? Like no one else was near even thinking about their child rearing years. I just came from a very different culture. So I'm sitting there pregnant in all these classes thinking like, let's just blame the mom. Let's just blame the mom. Let's just blame the mom.
Right.
And then when I heard about temperament theory, it's like, oh, yeah, wait a minute, right?
Yeah.
Not to say that moms aren't incredibly influential, and not to say that we don't have a responsibility to be the adult in the room and the attachment figure. But the mom, even in the gentle parenting space, the mom shaming and the mom blaming, you know, gentle parenting
Rampant.
ain't gentle. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's very Western and very scientific to try to assume that we have that level of control. And then we force all of that control on the mother. And I think what is nice about temperament studies is just that like there is just stuff that we have no control over.
Yeah.
And we just have to be able to embrace that. But I think science is all about maximizing our level of control over every aspect of our lives. And that's just a little delusional.
Yeah, 100%. And the interactions, right, are so much bigger than us. But I also think that it's somewhat of a trauma response to want to control things.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like trauma wants us to keep our lives small. So if we have this thought of like, I'll do gentle parenting and I'll follow these scripts and I'll do it perfectly, then I'll never damage my kid.
It feels a lot like the narrative and the people who are selling gentle parenting and are preying so specifically upon traumatized mothers. So when I was pregnant, I was so scared about screwing up my child. So I was reading all of these books, like just all across the board. And one of them, several of them on attachment parenting were like, you can interrupt intergenerational trauma by doing all these incredible attachment moves, which is co-sleeping, not sleep training, breastfeeding, holding your kid 20 hours a day, and being incredibly gentle, just laying out all of the scripts that you can use. And
I'm starting to get anxious just hearing this, like my anxiety. I'm like,
I
starting to panic.
right. And as a person who comes from significant trauma, obviously, I feel like I was so vulnerable to that. I was so fearful. I was so coming from this background of control, because control equals safety. So if I control everything, then I will be safe and my kid will be safe and they will actually love me forever and they won't disown me when they're an adult. And so I have to do everything exactly right, just like these books are telling me. And I feel like in retrospect, it was incredibly manipulative and it was incredibly predatory, because you're targeting this audience that is vulnerable in this way and also has the fewest resources to be able to parent in that specific way. Because if you're saying that you cannot sleep train, if you're saying that you have to be there every single minute of your child's life, you know, a lot of people with complex PTSD don't have extended family networks that can help.
Right.
A lot of people with complex PTSD don't have a lot of money or have the luxury of taking off like years to be there for your children. I had
such a similar experience in the sense that I remember reading a book also, and I think I want to point one thing out to you that occurred to me when I was researching my book, which is really our brains are very lazy and they like to do a copy paste whenever they can. Our brains just, that's what an internal working model of attachment is. If your brain can do the what would mom do, and what would mom do is perfect, just do that. Great. I don't have to think it over. Like, this is the age you give a kid a pacifier, or you don't give a kid a pacifier, or you let them crawl, or you do laundry on Wednesdays or whatever. If you don't have to think it up because there's a system already in place, fabulous. My brain does not have to juggle that task. So when you don't have an internal working model of attachment, your brain is like, help, I got to figure this out from scratch. It's not just the to-do list of parenting, it's the to-don't list. This is a lot of work. So then this guy has a book and it says, this is how to do it. Of course you're going to grab it because it's like, great, my brain has something. It doesn't have to do all the work on its own because this guy, he knows what to do. Exactly. Except he's a guy who never parented. And I'm also going to point out that if we're recovering from CPTSD, sleep is kind of a thing. And you can't be an attachment figure without sleep. So I remember reading a book where it was like you have to co-sleep. Now, I have really bad flashbacks in the middle of the night, to this day. And I remember reading that, just my heart sinking. I'm thinking, okay, poor baby. I mean, it's over for this kid then, because can't co-sleep because I'll probably literally kill the kid simply because I flail around so much. I really have extreme flashbacks. So I can't do that. It would literally be unsafe for the baby. What do I do? So I compromise by basically staying awake all night in the baby's room on a chair. And newsflash, it's not great for your psychological stability or ability to be an attachment figure.
No. What is safer? Having a mother that is so sleep deprived that they literally are falling asleep and hallucinating in the daytime when trying to take care of the baby, or having a mother who is well rested and sometimes has to leave. I think ultimately you're putting I was hallucinating. I was trying to do the same thing. Yeah, and I have a disability as well. And so I definitely need my sleep. Not to mention if you have CPTSD and you don't get a significant amount of sleep, panic attacks and extreme depression
gets worse. And really hard to be an attachment figure when you're extremely depressed. So they really set us up to fail, and then they'll just sell us book 2.0 as a way of sort of okay, so great, I'll make more money out of your distress because here's 2.0 version of this that's going to solve all of your problems now. And the whole point of attachment is mentalization. The point is that mom comes and goes, right? Attachment's a dance. And the idea is, the whole Daniel Tiger song of parents come back, right? If we're there 24/7 and we never let them develop a transitional object, right, like a blankie or something, there is an attachment parenting approach that doesn't let kids have transitional objects. They tell the parent, if their kid is trying to replace you with a blankie, rotate the blankie and wash it.
Oh,
I've treated, this was a particular approach that was taught by a parenting teacher where I live, and I've literally treated the victims of this approach.
What?
It creates such anxious children.
I have not heard of that. Just rely on your mother 24/7 for every single thing.
Right, rely on your mother 24/7 and, never leave her side. And then we have really not well moms and really not well kids. Yeah. And then we have to learn how to mentalize and how to imagine mom. And I literally would do things with the kid like, you're going to go into another room. Mom, you're going to close your eyes. Imagine mom making you a peanut butter sandwich. Mom, you make the peanut butter sandwich. And then kid, come into the room. And look, there's the peanut butter sandwich. So we can start building a mental image of mom. Right? Mom is not always going to be there, but that's okay because she's mentally a representation. And I literally this was a parenting approach that was very crunchy granola and popular in certain circles and didn't test well in the real world. No, it's not fair to the mom, it's not fair to the kid, it's just plain wrong. But I think you're right that you're really speaking to the predatory part. I think in my book that's what I tried to do. I was like, look, there's two simple things in parenting, and I feel like this is what I was doing in my whole graduate education was trying to figure this out. What is the impact of trauma on child development so that I can parent my kids and not mess them up, right? Like, that's really what I was trying to figure out, you know? I was in NYU with all these people who have undergrad degrees from Harvard, and I have like a community college degree, and they all have these super specific research interests, you know, like Vygotskian approaches to language development in 4-year-olds, you know? And I'm like, well, I'm in an encopresis clinic, and I'm in a clinic for kids who are oppositional, and I'm doing research on child temperament, and I feel like just this runt of the litter because everybody just has these research interests. And suddenly it's like, actually my therapist pointed out, she's like, Robin, what if you're just studying the impact of trauma on parenting? Because in an encopresis clinic where kids can't control their bowels, and in a clinic for kids who act out, you know what you meet? Nothing but survivors of child abuse. That is it. That is the entire clinic.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that is what I'm researching. Thank you. Oh,
and I will say,
do have a research interest.
And I think it's really important. You know, I think one thing I'm kind of struggling with my book, honestly, is this balance of, because child abuse is real and it really happens, and often, you know, people who don't have those internal working models do wind up abusing their children because they don't know what else to do.
Simply don't know, right?
But there's also a wide swath of women who have experienced trauma, who are doing their best and doing a damn good job, but believe they are not, because they are traumatized. And so I don't think that you, in coming across, you know, hundreds of abused children, ever saw any of them where you were like, your trauma stems from, you know, being sleep trained.
Right.
I think there's this big gap between like what we think is abusive and what is actually abusive.
Right. Right. And there's something to be said for, of course, seeing the world through a child eye lens and understanding what a child is trying to do. And, you know, there's social media that like does that, right? I'm a baby and I'm alone in a room and my mama's not coming and I'm so afraid. And they're trying to like, there's something to be said for giving you that insight here and there. But when we over dramatize it to like, I abused my kid because I sleep trained, when we're talking about a mom who was abused because somebody like stubbed out cigarettes on her skin.
Yeah.
Your child feeling distress is not abuse because your kid's not you, your kid has you. But we conflate that because we forget that like my kid is going to feel, I remember just being so worried that like my kid is going to feel the same levels of panic and anxiety that I have. And like, wait, but like anxiety before a test is normal. Like, do my friends like me? Like that lunch tray moment at the beginning of 9th grade when you don't know which table to sit at, and other than that the cool girls don't let you sit there, that's all you know. You don't know anything else. I can't protect you from that, but that's not trying to hide from the whole world that you're having flashbacks because you think you're crazy, right? It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But we forget that because we don't want our damage to damage them. We really don't. But you're so right. Every time I get a message on social media, I'm sure you get the same thing where it's like, I slept through my baby crying. Did I harm attachment forever? What do I do? I knew it. I shouldn't have had kids. I'm perpetuating cycles. Like, no, you're messaging me about this. You are not your stepmom. Like, you are a far cry.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a line from your book that I think you say it a couple times. I just repeat it to myself constantly, which is just that discomfort is not an emergency. And I think that is your child and you both being really uncomfortable is such a necessary and healthy part of development, and really a horrible part of healthy development. I mean, nobody likes to see your 2-year-old like screaming for an hour straight, right? Like, but this is also totally natural. And so I just feel like I have to tell myself that all the time. And I don't know, I feel like in your book you were kind of like, you were aligning yourself with the avoidant parent, but I'm very much the perfectionist parent. And I don't know, like all your researching is kind of making me think you had
I was
some of
very,
that too.
very, Yeah, at first I was very, very disengaged because dissociation is my go-to stress response. It's how I got through school. It's how I really felt. We had very different things. I really had to hide. I felt like I had to hide the fact that I was having flashbacks from my classmates, from my mom, from everybody, because I really thought that I thought I was schizophrenic. Like I thought like if you see things that aren't there or talk to people that aren't there, then you're mentally ill in a way that, no 16-year-old wants to be. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So dissociation became my go-to, where I could just escape into my brain and I'd be in this pink cloud and I'd be totally calm, even if things were super stressful. That's how I was able to do, CPR on my father and then CPR on my classmate, like practically a week later. Mm-hmm. And I've been able to do that. Like it was in some ways a superpower. Like I was a mom of 4 small children traveling from central Jersey to Manhattan every day. The only way I was able to do my research was on the bus with my laptop. A drunk guy could be drooling on my shoulder. I mean, like you're talking coming from, 42nd Street in Manhattan at like midnight going home to New Jersey. A drunk guy is like drooling on my shoulder and I'm coding data because I have to get home and like nurse twins. You know what I mean? Like I was able to do that, but the way I did that for years is I just disengaged. My kids would be talking to me. My TEDx talk, I talk about when my son was 10, he said to me, "Mommy, where do you go when you go away behind your eyes?" And he started to cry. Yeah. And that's when I said, oh no, my damage is damaging my kids. Like until then I was like, I don't need to get a handle on this. It works. It's fine. Like I'm a perfectionist in a different way. I get straight A's while having small kids and working full time. Like I can do it all, but no, I can't. Not while being present, I can't. Yeah. Right? But I think with CPTSD, because like when the attachment figures were harmful in childhood, that's where you get the perfectionist parent. I see it so often.
Yeah. I think for me, it was kind of the opposite. Sometimes it would be like, I have to be totally engaged and attuned to this child every single moment of the day. Yeah. I have to be looking in your eyes and like attuning to every single need that you have. And every tiny little whimper, I'd be like, what is it? What is it? What do you, right. Like I can help, I can fix it. And I think it's only just recently that I've sort of been able to like think, I think some dissociation here would be really helpful.
Right, a moment to step back.
Yeah, he was crying for 45 minutes this weekend because I gave him like 10 yogurt melty things, and he wanted like 20 yogurt melty things. Whatever, yeah. So he just cried for 45 minutes, and like the first 30 minutes, I was just like, what can I get you? Can I get you something else? Oh, I'm validating your feelings. Oh, you feel so sad. I like going through the whole gamut. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a book. I'm going to sit with you here. Right. I'm not going to leave you, but I'm going to read my book because like I can't with this anymore.
Right. Like, yeah. And also because sometimes you're going to cry because 10 is not 20, and that's the tragedy of the world. Sometimes we get 10 and not 20. Our loving, caring parents only give us 10, right? Like, right. And that's not abuse, right? Even though there's probably a part of your brain shrieking, but he's going to feel abused, abandoned, like unloved. Yeah. Like, no, I did everything right. I said at home, sorry, buddy, you're so sad. You really wanted 20 and I only gave you 10. I get it. You have a lot of big feelings. And after that, I got to let your brain process.
Yeah, I think part of me was like feeling that. He kept trying to grab my book, being like, don't read your book, pay attention to me. And I had to explain to him, like, if you want to talk to me and you want to tell me what you need and you want to actually take a breath, those are all great things. And if you can take a minute to verbalize anything you need, I will help you get there. But until you can do that, I'm really bored right now. Mama's bored. Yeah. It's okay, right? And I was like, I think, one thing that really helped me in all of this research too was like the attunement studies that show that all you really need to do is attune 30% of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, that is so little. I mean, it's hard to get to still, I think. Yeah. But
yeah, but 30% of it is hard to get to, but 30% feels doable in a way that 100% does not and cannot. Yeah. It's true. Sandy McClowry's research showed that optimal parents are optimal 30% of the time. Yeah. Like she had like very simple, like optimal, adequate, and counterproductive. Even optimal parents, like people in that category who we all as interraters all said, wow, this is an optimal parent, 30% of the time. Mm-hmm. 30% of the time you can say, all right, you can't find your shoes. Let's retrace your steps. Where were your shoes the last time you remember having them? Like, right? And adequate is your shoes are in the dining room under the table, because somehow mom always has that GPS in her brain, versus counterproductive of like, I told you put your shoes in the, yeah, right? 30% of the time you need to do that. Like, let's retrace your steps. That's all. The rest of the time you can just be adequate and you're fine.
Yeah.
You know? And every so often we're counterproductive, and that gives us the opportunity for repair. Like, that's okay.
And I feel like I do that about like a third of the time, because there is a lot of like, why aren't your shoes here? Come on, why aren't your shoes here?
It's not
and
that
like,
hard,
what are you
right?
gonna do? What are you gonna do?
How old is your son?
He's 2.5.
Oh, yeah, that's that age where they start like having opinions and like,
Oh yeah.
you know.
He got to like 2, and I was like, I think I might have like a miracle angel child, because he's 2,
Yeah.
but he's still wonderful. And then like 2 and 3 months happened, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Gee, what happens if we pour the entire bottle of shampoo out all over the bathroom floor?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's like that's that age.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is 4, and he's like, you forget, like they're still babies, but like then they're so sophisticated in some ways, and it can be hard. And like, yeah, like I say in the book, your kids don't trigger you, they reveal your triggers. And they really do. Like, you know, especially if your trigger is about, am I damaged? Like, can I parent? Can I do this? Will my mom suddenly come out of my mouth? You know?
And I think when there is something in your book that was really helpful and enlightening too, in terms of like, I think my first year and a half easily parenting, if not a year, I was trying to get as far away from my mom as possible. Just trying to like, I'm going to, every time something happens that I say something that feels a little like my mom, I'm like going to hate myself for it, chastise, and anything, any memory that comes up with my mom, I'm going to like immediately throw it to the back of my brain and be like, no, stay away from me. Like, I don't,
Go away.
go away. You're going to taint this. You're going to come and you're going to mess up my child. And I think as I got older, what was actually helpful was like moving closer towards my mom and having a more nuanced interaction with that, and welcoming the memories more. And even if they were bad, in terms of being like, okay, but I remember as a child exactly how it felt when she would do this. And so I'm going to like be really intentional to like make other choices, or moments where I'm like, actually, I think she handled that pretty well. And I think it's okay if I think it was really triggering for me to have to acknowledge that she did some things right at first.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, that's very scary.
because I was like, oh, what if she wasn't that bad? What if she was a good mom and I like made a horrible deal out of all of this, and I've overreacted and my story isn't my story, and blah, blah, blah. and then I was just kind of like, actually, it makes it kind of worse if my mom was really loving and good sometimes, and also could like put a knife to my throat and say that she wished that I'd never been born. You know, that like actually makes it kind of worse when that
Actually,
does
a lot
eventually
worse.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah, the confusion and the wait, what's going on here for a little child, that's significantly worse. I think unrelenting evil is just unrelenting evil. You know, that nuance of sometimes she was loving, or sometimes even the love was coming from me, but it was love, right? That's got to be very, very hard. But I think you're right, bringing it in, welcoming it in, and being like, okay, what do you have to teach me? What do you have to tell me right now? Right?
Instead
it's
of
so
running.
scary.
Yeah. Like, I can't spend my entire parenting life running from the past and just saying I'm going to do everything the opposite.
Because the opposite of a thing is a thing.
Yeah.
You know? And I think people don't understand that sometimes the opposite is the same mistake, just in the other direction. That's not good either. You have to parent the kid in front of you with nuance, and yourself with nuance and understanding. And you're right, when it's just splitting off a part of yourself, I mean, like, you know, internal family systems would call that an exile. And like, that's, you know, it's a part that has some wisdom to impart. Even if the wisdom is don't do this, it's still wisdom.
So real.
Yeah. And, you know, as When do you think was like your panickiest time in terms of like reading these parenting books? As you were pregnant, when he was first born? Like,
Um, I was really, really trying to mobilize my dissociation while pregnant because I knew about the effect of cortisol on like
yeah,
infants. I read about that. I knew too much.
right.
And so I was just like, I would approach an article, it would have the bad news. I would immediately shy away from it, be like, I am disappearing into TikTok because I need to protect my child. But I think the fresh postpartum period was so bad. I mean, it was bad until I went on medication, then that helped, but I think I was still very anxious for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just really thought that everything I did, everything was going to screw him up permanently.
Yeah.
And I would tell my therapist about XYZ thing that I had just done. I dropped him 2 inches to the ground and like knocked his head a little harder on the ground than I wanted to. Or I, whatever, didn't immediately go to him when he was crying. I waited like a minute or something. And then he would just be like, wow, no, you're really not in a good place right now. This is all totally within the realm of normal.
Right. Right. But our rumination and our anxiety just like goes and goes and goes. And it's really coming from a good place, right? It's like our attachment system wanting to keep the little human alive. The attachment system is not this cozy, cuddly thing. It's, the idea of like nature red in tooth and claw. Like it's nature. It's the mama bear syndrome. Like I will kill someone who tries to kill my kid, but then sort of internalized against ourselves. Like, did I just try to kill my kid? Like, did I just, ignore a cry and now my kid is screwed up forever? It's not pleasant. And I think people don't understand that. Like the attachment system is a loud alarm meant to keep people alive. That does not feel pleasant in our psyche. It's not meant to. Right? The coziness, the attunement, all of that, that's the beautiful, fun, joyful part. But the attachment system is that alarm bell. So like you let your baby cry a little because like you're finishing up in the bathroom and you just like need to wipe yourself and like get out. And the baby's still crying and you're thinking, I gotta hurry. Oh my God, he's like, he's fine. He's not dying. Like, it's okay. He's just like fussing in his crib. Like nothing will happen. I can take the 2 seconds to wash my hands, which is probably more protective of him in the long run, right? Like it's okay.
Is it fuzzy from the children's perspective, do you think? Or is it also not fuzzy?
I think it is because I think children understand the totality of the relationship. They remember they don't remember like the one incident. They remember overall mom came. Overall, mom was there. Overall, my parents came back. Overall, they were warm and understanding. I think when there's a real rupture, you do something wrong, then you repair it. And I think they remember the repair. I think for me, one of the reasons why I was able to write this book now is I have both adult children and very young children. So like my oldest daughter is 27. She is already a mom. So I can watch her parent. That's what happens. You end up being a young grandma. So I can see her parent and I can see how she talks about her childhood. It makes me less panicky with my younger ones because it's like, okay, like we've got this, as long as there are moments of repair and as long as you learn from your mistakes and you're more attentive than not, you're more attuned than not, you're more reliable and stable than not, you're more likely to get curious than furious when your kid does something wrong, your kid's going to be okay. And you're willing to hear feedback. I think that's the one big thing where I would be prescriptive with parents is like, if your kid gives you feedback, instead of doing the old school authoritarian, well, I'm the parent in the house, kind of line, do the like, oh, that's how that's landing on you. This is good information. Let me think that over. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to change everything. It's like, I would be happy if you, gave me an unlimited budget to spell in that aloe. I hear ya. You're 14. I get that. And not happening. And, maybe we can figure out a way for you to get a little bit more of what you want while doing something perhaps that you don't want so that you earn it, so that you learn the value of money. Sure, we can have that kind of conversation, but being willing to hear feedback from your kids as they get older is already breaking cycles to a huge extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, so, like, it's just, to me, that's comforting that, like, I don't think I didn't publish my book until I did have adult children.
Because you wanted
for,
to make sure that what you did worked.
yeah, like, or like that I had a certain sense of like perspective and distance, especially like in the book I'm writing a lot about like my panic attacks while pregnant, or my flashbacks while parenting, or like when my son asked me where I go when I go way behind my eyes. There's that son is 23 now. He's in college. I've been able to have adult conversations with him about that story. Right? I've processed it very well. I think the perfectionist part of me comes out where I don't like to make mistakes in my research. I don't like to make mistakes with patients. I don't like to, so that was always where my perfectionism held. That was my, so even with my book, like I had so much imposter syndrome. There were just so many years, even when I hired associates in my practice to like supervise them, I remember being like, I remember saying this to my therapist, like, am I ready to supervise like beginning therapists? And she's like, you have a PhD and 2 postdocs. When will you be ready? 4 postdocs? Like what would make you feel like, okay, you are now ready? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I guess I'll do that then. Like, you know what I mean? Like there is this sense of imposter syndrome that comes from that perfectionism of PTSD, right? That perfectionism, like, I know how to never experience trauma again. I'll be perfect. I'll never make another mistake. Then nothing bad will ever happen. Bad things happen sometimes outside of our control.
Yeah.
Like the world is on fire. The world went on fire in COVID and it has never been extinguished since. Like, we can't control that. I can parent perfectly. The world's still, geopolitical events are still happening. Can't control them. Even if my trauma app tells me that I can. I can't.
Yeah, my husband laughs. Sometimes me and my mom friends will get together and we'll share all of our anxieties about how we're like messing up our children or doing whatever XYZ. And like, my husband's like, you recognize that there are much larger forces at stake that are going to impact him, especially as like an adult, than your parenting too, than this like tiny aspect of your parenting. Like, what if there's world war or fascist state or whatever? All of this other stuff like is going to be significantly impactful, and there's you don't have control over that. We
can't, and I think for me, I say in the book, I had this panic attack the first time I sent my daughter off to preschool, and I said to her, I stood at the front steps and I did the whole goodbye first day of kindergarten thing, and like she was wearing her little uniform and we took pictures, and then I was like, bye, all right, God willing, I'll see you later. And then I thought, oh no, what if God doesn't will it?
Yeah.
What like, and I was literally listening for the bus to crash. And then I panicked and I froze, and I actually did not go into NYU that day. Like, I had a day full of like obligations, and I just had to call and cancel because I had my husband call because I couldn't even like call the office. I was just sitting there frozen, and I froze for an entire day. I'd love to hear from you a little bit. You talk so much in the book about like your therapy and how helpful that was. I'd love to hear how you think about it now.
About my therapy in the last book, or therapy since like having a
Both.
child?
Yeah, both.
I think my therapy beforehand was super helpful in that it really gave me a lot of tools to understand how to better attune to others and to listen to them and to be curious and to ask questions instead of immediately like jumping to fixing and solutions and sort of freaking out that other people are mad at me, that kind of thing, and fighting or fawning. It was really great relational therapy, essentially. Figuring out how to make repairs. And I think what was really tough for me when I had my kid was that a lot of the lessons that I had learned fell away because I didn't know how to attune to somebody who is nonverbal and who not only nonverbal, it's just like a lump. And
Right.
so I was just like, okay, you taught me all of these great ways to attune to other human beings, but how do I do that if I can't communicate with this child? How
Have a
can I
conversation.
tell what he
Yeah.
wants, or whether I'm doing wrong by him or I'm making him unhappy? How do I repair with him? And so that was a really big hurdle to cross. And I mean, things are way better now that my kid is very verbal. But yeah, I had to learn a new language of attunement that was much more physical. And people talk about maternal instinct, but it's not a real thing. Like, there is
Right.
no
No,
real
it's not.
instinct. It's all learned. And so I had to learn all of that. And that was a way, I mean, talk therapy was helpful in that sense. I think there was a lot of really gentle, loving, helpful things that my therapist said. But I think a lot of it just had to be lived and
Yeah.
felt. And I think another really hard thing was that my entire community sort of fell away. I had spent all of this time building community, and I think, I had based my lovability and my healing in the fact that, well, I have this community now who is going to take care of me and my child.
Yeah.
And then I was really surprised by how lonely parenting was,
Yeah.
and how few people want to show up or can show up in those
Yeah.
long early morning hours from like 4 to 7, where you're taking care of your kid
Yeah.
by on your own, and
And
it
lonely
has,
is so triggering.
huh?
Lonely is so triggering.
Lonely is so triggering. Yeah. Especially because I have so many abandonment issues. I very much
Right.
felt abandoned all the time
Yeah.
for a year more.
Yeah.
And that was another way in which I think therapy wasn't as effective as it had been.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think it was helpful in that he normalized it, and I understood that I hadn't just done anything wrong or chased my friends away. Like, when you have kids, people fall away who don't
Yeah.
have kids. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but I think that how has talk therapy helped me post having a child?
But I think it's so helpful what you're saying, and I think for everyone to hear this and know that you can really process something and integrate it well in therapy, and having kids can make it feel like your progress fell away simply because it's such an overwhelming experience.
Yeah, in many
And I
ways
think a
you're back
lot
to
of
square
people do
one.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like you're back to square one.
Yeah.
It's more like a spiral, like you're back to square one, but on a higher point in the spiral, but you don't feel that way. You feel like you're back at square one. Mm-hmm. Like you're spiraling upward, really, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I'm right back here. Like, here we go again. What happened? Didn't I do all this therapy? Aren't I better?
Yeah. But I think that what he did do that was helpful is that he centered me and my needs a lot, and he was like, you can't disappear. You have to keep paying attention to you and validating your valid desires. And then a lot of times when I was freaking out and I was just having my, like, what if I did this wrong? What if I did that wrong? What if I did this wrong? I guess I can never do this again. I guess my life is ruined. He would just kind of remind me to get in my body and ask, who is this right now? And I would need to remember, I would have to confront, like, oh, this is, the teenager who was abandoned in high school who's freaking out. Oh, this is the child who believed that she would be beaten if she wasn't perfect, and that the entire world would fall apart. And just have a conversation with her, or at least acknowledge her presence, and try and take care of that inner child in whatever ways. I don't think I'm necessarily still a particularly good parent to her. I'm a much better parent to my own child than to my inner
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
But
Although in parenting our children, we can start to heal our inner child, but it's such a process. But I think there's so much truth to that it does feel like motherhood makes all our therapy progress go away, and it's such a scary feeling. But when you normalize it and when everybody knows that, then it's like, oh, this is just what's happening now. This is like, it's sort of like when someone's like, well, sleep regression at this age is normal. Or, you're just basically saying that, like, sort of therapy regression when your baby is an infant is so normal, because if you have abandonment, if you have perfectionism, whatever your trauma adaptation was, it's going to come back up in a whole new way, aided by all these hormones and all of this new skill set that you're trying to learn, and your brain that's trying to like learn how to keep another human alive. And that is really, 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 really scary. Yeah, and it's going to happen. It's going to be like that. It's sort of like morning sickness is going to be like that. Like there's no cure. You're going to be nauseous for a while. It's not much I can tell you other than that. There's certain things where it's just like, yeah, it's going to suck for a while until it doesn't. Right? And I think that's helpful. I really think it's helpful. I think it's useful to know. Just like it's useful to know that like traumaversaries are a thing and it makes sense, or, when I realized that it's normal to be jealous of my own kids because they have a childhood that I never had. And that doesn't mean I'm a bad, mean, rotten, nasty parent. It's normal. Right? Like when you normalize, and I think that's what I love about your book, is that you normalize what it's like to grow up without reliable attachment figures. And yeah, this is exactly what it's like for all of us, for everybody, for whatever reason that it happens. I don't think that our stories are the same, not conflating or playing trauma poker, but I'm more saying the idea of, yeah, there are certain predictable outcomes that are going to happen when people don't have stable attachment figures.
yeah.
And let's not be like, wait, am I crazy? No, I have a condition. It's called CPTSD. There's treatment for it. There's hope, right? We can heal. Our damage doesn't have to damage our kids.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so helpful to have a name for like the monster under the bed.
Yeah. I mean, I think people were really, really lovely about even my flaws in my last book. I was afraid before it came out. I was like, people are going to think I'm terrible and crazy and like a bad person. And I really, I mean, there's some of that, but 90% of my readership does not feel that way. And I think I'm a little bit more scared of this next book because I think people feel much more comfortable hating on moms. And so there is part of me that's like, oh, people are going to think I'm a bad mother for having these feelings. But, I think we do have to normalize it. And I guess if people want to feel that way, fine. Because so many, thousands and thousands of us do, the reality is, struggle with these feelings. And that is a normal part of being a mother.
Yeah, you're right. You are opening yourself up to mom shaming and mom blaming because you're going to write a book and you're writing about the realness of parenting with CPTSD. And yeah, there are going to be people who are going to mom shame and mom blame. They can't not, right? Especially the people who will have an agenda and they'll prove it through your book. But you're right. Give them permission to. Like, okay, if you want to misunderstand me, all I can do, I know in my book, right, someone said to me, you're talking about having PTSD. Who wants to see a psychologist who herself has a mental illness?
Who
As
said
it turns
that?
out, plenty of people.
Who said that?
A much older sort of mentor figure, not really a mentor figure of mine, but like a much older former professor of mine who really honestly was not terribly encouraging in my graduate education.
That's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah, but I think there's a certain male who was, socialized in the 1950s or so who thinks that way, and okay, enough people to fill my practice, so it's all good, right?
Yeah, I think
Don't
that
refer to me then.
We've all sort of learned, I think our generation or younger generations especially, have recognized the value in lived experience and the value of people, of empathy, essentially. Because I think that no matter how many books you read or how many studies you're able to conduct, I don't think there's any substitute for the empathy that comes with lived experience.
Right. Processed lived experience is extremely important. I think we know this now. We're not doing that like research model of like, ivory tower academics, especially given that, like, think about like that attachment parenting book, right, that you're referencing, which is probably you're referencing like William Sears, which is basically fundamentalist Christianity, not, psychology. But you're also male and you've never mothered. So I think maybe perhaps the wisdom of people who have done it and then processed it and have that insider-outsider perspective of, the lived experience as well as the research base. I think there's wisdom in that. Not to say that there isn't wisdom in standard psychological inquiry. Of course there is. It's great. We know a lot of things from standard psychological inquiry, but we need both. Mm-hmm. I remember reading in your book, and this is such a side point, but you were writing about, a supervisor that you had who was sort of supposed to be a mentor and had mentored others, but was sort of undercutting to you and hurtful to you. Am I remembering that wrong? Mm-hmm. And that professor of mine was very similar. And in fact, when I was in grad school, I asked him, he was one of the important people in my program, and I asked him for a letter of recommendation for internships. And he said, why don't you ask someone who has a higher opinion of your abilities than I do, which was so sweet. So actually, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm taking a interdisciplinary course with Carol Gilligan. She's pretty well known. Why don't I ask Carol? She likes me. I'm doing well in her class. And she wrote me a letter of recommendation. And guess what? People were impressed with a letter of recommendation from Carol. Like, the fact that the acting chair of my department didn't write me one, no one even noticed because I had a letter from Carol.
That's so funny.
Sometimes, we have those experiences of people who are like, yeah, don't do this. Let's stick with the old guard, old way of doing things. But I think you're at that forefront of there's another way of attaining wisdom.
It's really important to value voices outside of the typical voices who often get published as well. Yeah. I think because if we don't have more voices about like people of color with complex PTSD, sure, Black women with complex PTSD, people who have complex PTSD from a wide variety of different reasons. Maybe it's, gender and sexuality trauma, maybe, just a million different stories and a million different causes for this condition. Then it can very quickly become the problem with like the veterans, where you just assume that everyone is broken in the same specific way and you can reduce people to that. And that's why I tend to value lived experience books as much as, if not more than, a lot of books written just by pure scientists or psychologists who don't have that experience. And I think your book, does, like, you can tell that it's written by somebody who has that lived experience, because I think there is, you do categorize people in like buckets of the way their trauma manifests, but I felt like as if there was definitely like a gentleness to your book and a lack of pathologization that I don't often see in like books like The Body Keeps the Score. And I think that is something that I've always gone for really, really hard in my writing as well. I like keep all of the delicate, wonderful, vulnerable people with complex PTSD in mind when I'm writing my books. And I don't want to take advantage of them or prey on them, I guess. Like I'm talking about the other books, I'm like make them feel like they need to be scared into submission or a different form of behavior.
Buy my book, I'll fix it kind of thing. Like, buy my book, I'll fix it. Feel guilt, then buy my book, then I'll fix it. Then you don't have to feel guilt. You know what I mean? Like,
or like you're a freak. You gotta fix yourself because you're a fucking freak.
You're a freak. Yeah.
Exactly. I just don't think that mentality is helpful at all.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Like when we reduce people to like any category automatically. And I struggled with that a lot in my book, right? Because I wanted to talk about, like, these are the things I tend to see. These are the patterns. I want to put some organization to the chaos. So, like, this makes sense. But at the same token, I don't want to be prescriptive in the sense that you have this diagnosis. You are, like, I don't want to do that, because then you reduce people. Like you're saying, I was somewhat disengaged, I was somewhat entangled, and then I was somewhat perfectionistic, right? Like, and I moved through the states, and that's sort of normal. But even with my parenting solution, really, like, I could have been so much more like, here's how to parent. You just want to be responsive and responsible. That doesn't sell, right? It's like, be responsive or responsible is not like one of those reductionist things where it's like, here's how to parent. Do just these 3 easy steps, 1, 2, 3 magic. Do that.
I don't think it matters also profoundly whether you say be careful or make, like, is that a good choice?
Right.
Which I think a lot of parenting books invest a lot into. Like, if you say be careful instead of make a good choice, or are you aware of where your body is, or whatever else you're supposed to say, like, oh, you're disempowering your child, or blah, 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 blah. And I just think that, like, wow, you are coming up with some really specific nonsense to shill.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. Like, just like R2 is, for me, it's just like responsive and responsible. Keep thinking, are you doing both of those things? You're fine. You're good. Yeah. The specific words do not matter. Do not buy parenting scripts. Do not download apps with specific scripts for each specific incident that might happen to your kid. Do not ask ChatGPT what to say to your kid when he shoves his little brother.
People do that? Oh no, that's not good.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh, there are apps that you can put in the situation your kid did, and they will give you the gentle parenting script of exactly what to say. So what do? Do we pause life and, like, put life on pause for 10 minutes while I read this and then say the perfect words? And what if my kid answers off script?
Yeah.
How about you just the words?
It's not about the words. It's about the energy.
Yeah.
It's about, like, the belief that you have in yourself and your child, I guess.
Yeah. So I so appreciate this conversation. I feel like, we've gone through a lot of stuff, and I think the post-traumatic parenting community is really going to learn a lot about it. What's the plans for your book? Like, when is it tentatively coming out?
I don't know.
The world's longest pregnancy, right? Like,
I mean, that's like, I know where my deadlines are. It's not within my control, honestly. Like, there's a lot of stuff in publishing that is like, I mean, I'll tell you when I tell you. It'll all be on my Instagram.
We'll all know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when I know, is what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, like, I personally cannot wait to read it, and, just continue this work of, I just think the wisdom of the generation of parenting where, like, we're breaking cycles, but we're not doing it in this mechanistic perfectionist way. We're going to be real, and it's going to be okay. Like, in the end, our damage is not going to damage our kids because we decided that it won't, Yeah.
I think that's very true.
And is there any final thought you want to share with the community, or anything?
I should have prepared better. No, I don't know.
And right now, people can find you I know they can find you on your Instagram. Where else can they find you?
Primarily on Instagram. That's the number one place. Yeah. I'm trying to think where else. Not really anywhere else. I have a website, stephaniefoo.me, where I have a list of resources for healing with or just the daily maintenance of complex PTSD. And my book is available everywhere books are sold. But a lot of people like the Audible of my book because there are real excerpts from my therapy sessions in there.
Yeah, I loved it. I own your book in both hard copy and on Audible because I need to be able to underline, and I also need to be able to listen. And that stupid thing where you like audio clip just doesn't do it for me. So I have 2 copies of your book, and and I refer to it a lot. And I'm always telling patients, like, this is something to read, especially at a certain point of their therapy journey. Like, this is something to read to normalize what this type of journey is like. And every single person I've recommended it to has thanked me. Like, I've never had a patient be like, I don't know why you told me to read that one. Sometimes I get that with other books, but this is like, I've never once heard, like, why'd you tell me to read that?
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you so much. That makes me really happy. Thank you so much.
It's really special.
I'm here on social media to be descriptive, not prescriptive. I'm here to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain, but never to treat. If listening to this podcast helps you realize that you need therapy, I am all for that. But podcasts aren't therapy. Please reach out to a mental health professional licensed in your jurisdiction. You'll be glad you did. Wish post-traumatic parenting was a talk show, not a podcast? You have a question for me or for my guests? Great news. You can ask those questions by following me on Instagram. My handle is @DrKoslowitz It's also in the show notes. I love it when people reach out, DM, or post a question. Who knows, your question might spark an entire episode. Come join our community. We get it. We're post-traumatic parents too. Can't wait to hear from you.